The 2058 Nobel Prize for Medicine goes to Professor Harper Lee. Hi, I'm Brooke Harper Lee, one of the world's leading microbiologists. Let me take you back 8 years in time, a time antibiotic resistance wasn't taken too seriously. On January 3rd, 2050, scientists found bacteria inside global freshwater sources. The bacteria was deemed highly dangerous. On the 27th of May, the World Health Organization passed a regulation for antibiotics to be infused into the freshwater supply in all member countries. The next month, I clicked on my smart screen to watch the weekly medicine news report. Here is a message from the World Health Organization. The population is significantly declining because of horrific bacterial infections. We have developed new technology that allows antibiotics to be administered via inhalation. Antibiotics will now be infused into the filters used in air conditioning systems. Within 5 months, all filters sold will need to comply with this regulation. I clicked off the smart screen and sighed. Later that day, I was commuting on my hoverboard when suddenly I crashed into the bioceramic footpath. I got a massive gouge in my knee, but I remember my hoverboard insurance plan. I get injured on my hoverboard way too often. My insurance is really expensive. I can't afford my premiums to increase or I'll have to give up my board. So I just pulled my X300 Smart Skins down over my cut. I was taking in antibiotics both through the water and inhalation, so I'd be fine, right? Ha! No, I was not right. The next morning I practically fell out of my nanosleep pod. My leg was so inflamed. It had gotten worse. What were those black things around the edges? Shouldn't the antibiotics I was already ingesting heal the wound? I decided to go to the doctors to get some broad-spectrum antibiotics. It turns out I had an MRSA infection. This causes a staph infection which is really difficult to treat. The antibiotics didn't work and my infection became so bad I had to call a Parabot passenger drone to take me to the hospital. I still remember the surgeon's words. You're lucky we caught this. Many infections we haven't caught in the recent months have been fatal. There's really no way to cure an infection this bad if it is unresponsive to antibiotics. The only option is to amputate the bottom half of your leg. Don't worry though, robotic prosthetics are really effective these days. I couldn't believe a single cut from falling off my hoverboard would lead to half of my leg being amputated. There was something wrong here. After rehab and still a little clumsy with my robot prosthesis, I took samples of water from different sources. After a couple of days, high-tech PET scans showed that the bacteria was rendered harmless a while ago, yet we were still adding antibiotics into the water supply. That didn't make sense. Even if the bacteria was rendered harmless, surely the antibiotics would have helped heal my cut, not make it worse. After a grueling long night of research on my Digitron screen, I read a medi-blog that reminded me about AR, antibiotic resistance. Maybe this could be the issue. Since we were ingesting antibiotics every day, the bacteria developed AR. Of course, my cut didn't heal because the bacteria was resistant to the antibiotics. The bacteria became aggravated and 10 times more virulent than it would have been if I hadn't been taking the antibiotics every day. I had to do something about this. Clearly, the World Health Organization just implemented a quick fix. If they hadn't done their research, they would have known that giving everyone antibiotics every day was not the solution. I went to my nanosleep pod that night thinking how I could solve this issue. After bringing together a group of incredibly resourceful scientists who agree with my research, we fought hard to gain the backing of a scientific organization, MediPro, at Yale to set up a meeting with the World Health Organization. After persevering through multiple rejections, finally our request was accepted to meet with the leading WHO scientists. I explained my philosophy, and after a marathon debate, they responded, "Your new research has really changed our perspective. A month from now, we will have all antibiotics removed from the water and air. Thank you so much." Over time, data showed the number of AR bacterial infections was significantly decreasing, and the population was increasing. I was recognised by the Nobel Foundation, and here we are at Stockholm City Hall for the Nobel Prize Award ceremony for 2058. Receiving this award has been one of the best moments of my life. A Nobel Prize winner doesn't just head to a nanosleep pod and stop trying to change the world though. My amazing team and I are currently studying AR. We are hoping to have alternative cures for bacterial infections in the coming years. We're currently examining the impact of bacteriophages. You should really come and see what we're hypothesizing now.
This December 28, 2052. Programming message to commence. Hello, Dr. Oster. This is Diana of Province 22, North America. At this time, the nanobot must have entered your augmented glasses. If so, please verify via retinal scan. Thank you for the verification. Now on to my message. I have an extremely concerning issue. My daughter Celine is almost 12. She is such a blossoming young lady, and I love her for it, but she's been fighting Corchin for a very long time. I feel uncomfortable admitting to it, but she's become resistant to many antibiotics, and I believe I've caused this issue. Once pharmaceutical companies in 2031 released the antibiotics of eudoxy, porphyrin, and canarin, I have been less careful with using them. I know many others have, too, when the anti-prescription bill was released. Celine has always had a weak immune system, which resulted in many endemic viruses that she caught. At the time, I just wanted her to get better. Our healthcare in Province 22 is extremely pitiful, so I got scared. So it may not be my fault. I gave her too many antibiotics for viral diseases that I later realized were for bacterial, which I didn't understand fully at the time. Now she's become resistant, which has made her case of Corchin even worse than others. She's been brought to the hospital today, but I don't believe that she'll live much longer. If I could just transport her to see you, it could save her life. I'll send a nanobot with as much money as you want. Please take mercy on me. Signing off, Diana, Province 22, North America. January 30th, 2053. Programming message to commence. Hello again, Dr. Oster. I've received your various holo messages. Are you really sure no antibiotic will work on her? I believe if I could just send her there, your workers could find some way to help her. There must be a cure. It can't be impossible. The doctors here have finally consented into letting me see Celine. I haven't missed any opportunity to see her. The rhythm of her heartbeat on the machine next to her beats like a song I hope will never end. Soon Celine will turn 12. If you could please take her in, even if the mortality rates are high, all I need is a chance. She means the world to me. Please take mercy on me. Signing off, Diana, Province 22, North America. February 1st, 2053. Thank you, Doctor, for taking her in. She will arrive by autonomous aircraft in a couple minutes. I know she will be in good hands. Even though your medical center is the top of the provinces, I feel wary knowing we are apart. All I need is her. I have money, a house, a job, but none of it means anything. Everything about her, her blue-eyed gaze, her startling red hair, reminds me of her father. Oh, Doctor, I don't mean to start tearing up. If Celine is no more, I don't know what I'd do. I know this is unprofessional, but parent to parent, you know our children are our lives. Take care of her and oh, wish her a happy birthday for me when she regains consciousness, eh? Signing off. Actually, before I sign off, please take mercy on her. Signing off, Diana, Province 22, North America. February 12th, 2053. Hello, Dr. Oster. I realize she won't live much longer. It's almost her birthday, and I hope she'd be back by now. If this is her last, please show her this message. Or else I can't live with myself. Even if she's not conscious, I believe that she can hear me. Hello, Celine. Happy birthday. I just want you to know that I love you. I know you love to sing. You always fill me with joy with the chorus of your voice. Ever since you were 5, you wanted to hear me sing. Sing you to sleep, sing in the morning, sing in our eye choir at our Nora temple. I always refused, but I owe you the pleasure. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Celine. Happy birthday to you. I'm sorry.
Dear lawmakers and Madam President, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my telegraphic hologram. Look at us. Humanity has yet again gotten ourselves into another fine problem. Yes, our global emissions are finally under control, COVID-65 is dealt with, and we have almost had 7 years of no war. However, we might be getting ourselves into another problem. We have been ignoring the signs, the warnings, the scientists, but now we are entering the belly of the bacteria. Did I say bacteria? Well, I meant beast. I might have blown that a little bit, but as you can tell, superbugs are back with vengeance. Bacteria are amongst one of the first microorganisms to ever appear on planet Earth. At this rate, they're probably going to end up being the last. For more than a century, we have relied on antibiotics to keep the harmful bacteria under control. Alexander Fleming had warned us back then itself about the dangers of overuse and antibiotic resistance. And look at us today. We blew it. We overused it for agriculture and meat in our hospitals and clinics. Today, this dark prediction has finally come true. There are more people killed by superbugs than any other disease known to mankind. A simple cold, a cut, a routine hospital visit can spell death because our antibiotics are not potent anymore. Now, I do understand that you all are more interested in that multiplanetary space colonization mission, but please remember, outer space wants to kill you. Not you personally, but space does not have anything. No air, no ozone, no stable temperature, and a lot of radiation. So our tiny blue planet is all we have. We have survived several pandemics over the past century, but this one is different. In the past, the pharma companies have been able to come up with yet another antibiotic, but we are losing to the simple one-celled organism. Millions of lives are being lost. We need to find a new approach. I am proposing a new solution. So, for my science project in school, I've been researching about antibiotic resistance, and I happened to come across an old manuscript in my dad's office. I had no idea how to use it or what it was meant for, but on the front it had the words, "The Natural History of Antibiotics." I knew that this would be promising. So I slowly pried open the pages, and then once I started reading, I could not put it down. There, I found a long and forgotten history about antibiotics that was just getting revived in my very own hands. I knew that this could be the key. As I read through the old manuscript, I found out about something called phage therapy, and this was an alternative had lost favor early on against antibiotics. But what exactly is phage therapy? So, bacteriophages are viruses that target only certain bacteria, ultimately killing them without any side effects. They are natural biological viruses, easy to find, and are not toxic to our body. However, in the 1900s, phages were difficult to prepare, expensive, and were also poorly researched. This is why people chose antibiotics instead. But if we were able to get the right funding and research, this new approach is very much doable. The last time phage therapy was used was probably in the late 1900s. Almost 200 years later now, we should be able to combat these problems. We can harness this old technology and update it for modern times. Now, I know that you all are probably asking yourself, how do I know that the same problem with antibiotics can't occur with this solution? Well, just like how bacteria develops and mutates, the same goes to bacteriophages. They are able to reproduce in new ways to fight their enemies. So, with this new solution, enough funding, and enough research, we will have a globally available tool. And I believe that the government has to step in. I very much hope so that my proposition is heard and agreed with, because I know bacteriophages can definitely become the key to antibacterial resistance. Thank you.
30 years ago, when the world didn't unite to fight antibiotic resistance, humans lost control and bacteria took charge. Now, in 2052, Mycobacterium tuberculosis 4, or MTB4, has infected 70% of us, and the world is suffering. It took our parents too. I was infected, but not as bad as Ben. He was only 15 when his sickness got severe, and he's been in the hospital while I was in med school. I've been exploring alternate solutions to MTB4, especially phage therapy. I explained to investors that bacteriophages were viruses that could enter antibiotic-resistant bacteria and kill them from the inside. But surrounded by doctors that constantly prescribed antibiotics, Ben never had any confidence in my work. He never forgave me for going away to follow my dreams. Coming back to the present, I roll my eyes as I saw a hollow ad for Antibio's highly effective 100-round dose mechanism for MTB4. Antibio had become a profitable monopoly worldwide, giving everyone the strongest medicines repeatedly. I knew their treatment didn't help. These were only temporary solutions that didn't address the real problem. But I couldn't think about that now. The success of my phage therapy lab in the Nisha Islands in the Pacific Ocean was what was going to save people and make the pain I'm enduring all worth it. Our new approach to phage therapy, biofilm structural change proteins, would allow for the bacteriophages to weaken and eliminate resistant bacteria. I just need people to invest in our lab instead of Antibio, but it's proving hard without evidence. Ding! I hear an alert from my AI assistant. Sarah, your brother Ben is in critical condition. Travel is required for potential end-of-life proceedings. No, this couldn't be. Not again, not my brother. I fly on a solar panel plane to Ben's hospital. He looked weak and frail, worse than ever before. Seeing his condition, doubt started to swirl in my stomach. Maybe Ben was right. Maybe phage therapy wasn't getting solutions fast enough, and the chances of its success were slim to none. What were the chances of finding evidence of my theory? What if it was just me pushing for this because I wanted to prove it to myself? I realized that maybe Ben, if I injected stronger drugs in him, his treatment would be shorter. I would be able to see him again. But this was phage therapy. My life's work. Everything I've worked for would be gone. But Ben was more important. I inject the strongest drugs from Antibio. Anything to get him awake, see his eyes and say I was sorry for leaving him. Sarah, he says. I smile and tears well up in my eyes. It was all worth it to see him again. Ben and I talked for the first time since the epidemic hit. I'm so glad you finally realized what's right. We can't all live in your fantastical world. I was stung a little, but I had decided to move on. Because Ben was feeling strong enough, we decided to go on a trip to the Nisha Islands to take his mind off the disease. As I swam in the coral triangle, I was mesmerized by its beautiful colors, its biodiversity being so high that there were species found here found nowhere else in the world. I glanced at Ben, but he's coughing. He's been getting worse as our trip has been going along. I tried not to think about how I might have been wrong injecting him with those drugs. Ouch, I say, as I am cut by a coral. After a couple of days, my cut intensified, so I decided to run some photon microscopy tests and see that there's a new type of phage in my system. These phages were attacking the MTB4 bacteria and appeared to be winning. They must have entered my body through the coral that I got cut by. They even had the specific biofilm protein that my lab was investigating, and coupled with the enzymes in the coral, it was enhancing this protein in a new and unique way. This could be the solution I was waiting for. I could formulate this into a phage serum and get this out to the world as a remedy for MTB4. I knew I needed to be in it for the long run. I glanced at my brother. I needed him to take this serum. It was the only way he was going to heal for good. Ben, you won't believe what I found. As I explained the phage serum, I see his face turn from excitement to disappointment. Sarah, you told me you're over this. Why would you go back to phage therapy? Ben, by giving you those drugs, I made the same mistake the world made. Now not only are you sicker, but I lost momentum in phage therapy. I almost missed this golden opportunity thinking that my work would never succeed. I need to believe in myself again. And you can help me prove that phage therapy is the right direction overall, long-term, and it is profitable. Antibiotics is not a permanent solution. Give this a chance. Ben slowly nods, and I inject him with the phage serum. It has been 2 years. Ben is fully recovered, and we've been explaining our phage serum to investors, and it is picking up steam. The seed we planted is starting to grow. Finally, as people, we can be united in the fight against these resistant bacteria. just what we needed all along.
Recording initiated, April 2nd, 2049. Isn't it funny how for decades humans have been trying to find the cure for cancer and heart disease and dementia? Little did we know that the mass killer of the 2040s would be a skin infection. Son, you're too young to watch this holo video now, but a few years into the future you'll start asking some questions. So here's some answers. I've never told you much about my job. You see, I work at the United Nations headquarters, leading the search for a solution to the antibiotic resistant of Staphylococcus aureus, or Rosa. Big name, huh? For a bacteria so small that just 8 of them can encroach their victim and multiply into a colony of 8 billion. I know a patient from Unit A12, and every day she forces me to confront the reality of Rosa as her skin festers into boils that burn as they ooze, as her lungs contract and they swell, as chills creep across her surface and her breath becomes short. She often tells the ill-fated tale of Sisyphus, who spent eternity pushing a boulder towards a crest on a hill that never ended. Antibiotics should be our simple saviour, but you see, our society overused these luxuries until our bodies built immunity. But in 2039 came the major breakthrough when I synthesized honeybee venom to discover a new and effective class of antibiotics, melittin, the first and only since 1987. It was a sweet moment, but only for a moment. Son, I want you to know that the government is a greedy, money-hungry machine, learning from no past mistakes. They printed these drugs, using and abusing and mass-producing through robotic 3D printers, building up the people's immunity again and drugging them with an overdose of hope. Perhaps we have to accept that antibiotics can't provide the convenient solution they always have. Bye for now, son. Recording terminated. Recording initiated. August 14th, 2049. Chaos. The patient from Unit A12 is getting sicker and Rosa is progressing full steam ahead towards a cataclysm with over 700,000 deaths and a 0% survival rate. You see, we were naive to underestimate the defences of the bacteria as it has outsmarted us time and time again. Son, I haven't made a holo video for you in months, but I want to show you that times like these call for courage and thinking outside the box. This virtual interaction presents what could be the first successful attempt to attach an acetyl tag to a Rosa. We can't destroy the bacteria, but perhaps we can manipulate the way it behaves, the way its histones interact with its DNA. I believe this may be the future of antibiotics. But I am uncertain how this solution can scale to the widespread of a Rosa. I am uncertain whether we are too late. I am like Sisyphus, the Greek tragic, pushing a boulder towards a hill, always just out of reach. I am uncertain if the Rosa battle will ever end. But I am certain of one thing. It's that I love you, son. Recording terminated. That patient from Unit A12, my son doesn't know that I live her reality every day as my skin festers into boils that burn, as they ooze, as my lungs contract and they swell, as chills creep across my surface and my breath becomes short. I am in Unit A12 right now. My condition is too developed for this solution to take any effect, but my hope is that it can prevent the next generation from experiencing the horrors of a Rosa, that my son will not die the same death I am about to. I can see the crest on top of the hill. Thank you.
Tears of guilt pricked my eyes as I glanced down at the infection-scarred body of my brother. But I had to do this, to find out what had happened to him, and to find out what was happening to myself. Thoughts swarmed my mind as I tried to forget I was performing an autopsy on my own brother. 6 months ago, we had been targeted by the biological warfare of World War III. Cannon-delivered facial recognition weapons had been developed some 40 years back, but now they were used to deliver explosions of deadly bacterial pathogens instead of the traditional ones. I had been the target, as I was among the few paramedics left in the war, but both my brother and I had been affected, and my brother was the one lying on the autopsy table. Our symptoms had considerably worsened since the war, and we were discharged. However, I found that my experience dealing with medicine as a paramedic was useless, as the world's antibiotic medication was controlled by a single medical monopoly, MediUnited. They offered treatment in 3 tiers. The first tier was unreliable solutions, novel antibiotics, some derivative experiments, and some century-old solutions like penicillin, which was extremely cheap but rarely useful, as most bacteria were now immune to that. I recall this as I inspected the microbiome of my brother's gut, which held evidence of the harsh ingestible antibiotics. It was all the army could have afforded to give to common soldiers. But my brother and I worked hard once we were out of the army, and we were able to afford the second-tier solution, phage therapy. 20 years ago, in 2040, phages were almost completely useless, as most bacteria were now immune to all medical phages. But MediUnited revolutionized that. They created a phage therapy that had worked perfectly for both myself and my brother. Our infections had healed, yet something still made us both incredibly weak. As I inspected my brother's brain with magnetic holographic imaging, I recalled how he had grown forgetful and sometimes incapable of basic tasks. I was scared as I could feel his condition descending on me, and I was guilty as I couldn't shake the feeling it had something to do with the biological warfare illness we had both sustained. Which is why I had to do this, to find out what had happened. As these thoughts swarmed my mind, I finished up the autopsy and shuffled through some of the samples and pictures I had taken from my brother's body. Except I noticed there was an anomaly. There was what appeared to be air bubbles, just empty cell walls where cells should have been. No nucleus, no mitochondria, nothing that a cell should have. That sounded familiar. When phages took over bacteria cells, they hijacked the cell, forcing the cell to produce phage DNA and phage proteins in order to construct new phages. Then the newly constructed phages simply abandoned the cell, finding no need for it. All they left was a torn, empty cell wall. The phages were taking over human cells as well. I had heard about this throughout history, but that was history. It shouldn't be happening now, right? I had heard about phages like P2, SP01, T3457 that could occasionally penetrate eukaryotic epithelial cells, like the gut, liver, kidney, lungs, and the brain. That's why my brother had grown forgetful and incapable of those basic tasks. And that's what was happening to myself. MediUnited must have harnessed these phages that could bypass any immunity that cells had. That means that bacteria couldn't mutate to be immune to those phages, but that also meant that human cells could not defend themselves. But I realized there have been no reports of the rich being affected by it. MediUnited would have been sued if it came to that. Unless it was in the 3rd-tier solution. The most expensive one, and the one only available to the rich. I had heard that it was supposedly targeted antibiotics, that it targeted plasmids, which were circles of DNA only found in bacteria as they don't have nucleuses. But what if it didn't target the plasmid, but rather the DNA found in phages? The rich could take the phage therapy, then the remedy against the phages, and the poor would just be able to afford the phage therapy or their unreliable antibiotics. The poor would just give their money for momentary relief, only to eventually die. But I could do something about this. With my experience, I could replicate MediUnited's solution. I could make it available to the general population, to the people who needed it the most. My brother had given me an undeniable gift. Perhaps I had caused his death, but the guilt finally lifted off of me, as now I could do something about it. I could save countless people, and I had to act soon.
Hello! Welcome to the human body bacteria group Sigma Omega. My name is Bacteria 001. I am the head of all of us bacterium here in this human's body. Since you've only spawned via binary fission a few minutes ago, I would like to personally give all 6 million of you a tour of your new home. Although around you may seem murky and moist, this is our headquarters. The lungs. The dark and wet location is perfect for homeostasis. even though the lungs are not doing anything wrong. Our job is to attack. Our DNA is coded to eat the lungs from the inside out. You, in the back, I see you have a question? Oh, yeah, maybe I should have started with clarifying why we want to attack the lungs. Well, you are all not just regular bacteria. You are all extensively drug-resistant tuberculosis, also known as XDR-TB. You are all able to continuously infect a human with tuberculosis without worrying about anything stopping you. As XDR-TB bacterium, we have built up an antibiotic resistance to all antibodies. See, our host body's primary physician did not make the best of choices. A month ago, the host body was diagnosed with bronchitis. Fluoroquinolone and capromycin was prescribed to the body when diagnosed, but little did the physician know that the bronchitis was actually tuberculosis. The combination of the host body not completing the entire course of prescriptions, along with the overprescription of drugs, allowed us to come back stronger as extensively drug-resistant tuberculosis, instead of just regular old TB. Now, we are multiplying in the billions and are ready to spread to others. As you see on your left, this holographic projection shows us what is occurring on the outside of the body. The inside of the lungs fill up with blood and liquid until the body can no longer receive oxygen. As you see in this screen, we have an amazing study abroad program. Every time that the host body hacks up blood in order to try and clear her lungs, microscopic droplets surround the air particles. Thus, anytime a different human comes into contact without the proper protection, us bacterium are able to infect them as well. Not only will you be able to travel to nearby cities and states, but even other countries across the world. Now, when I first transferred from being a tuberculosis bacteria into an antibiotic-resistant bacteria, I had one very important question. How was this even possible? Let me see some hands on who feels the same way. Oh, wow, that's a lot of hands. Well, to answer the age-old question, genetic mutation is how we became resistant to antibodies. Within DNA, we have nucleic acids. Since the antibiotics were overused within humans, our nucleic acids were able to evolve and fight against antibiotics. Now this way, everyone. Here, we can see a doctor in PPE administering capromycin, but it will not work. We are working tirelessly to make sure that the tuberculosis continues spreading through antibiotic resistance. Oh my gosh, no group has seen this yet. Here, we can see our host body going to respiratory failure. All the weight of her body surrounds her chest, causing her to drown without being in a body of water. Oxygen is unable to travel into her bloodstream, meaning she is ready to pass away. Wait, do you all see that through the hologram? What are the doctors doing? They already gave the host body all the antibiotics possible. This is something new. Do not fret, everyone. We will be able to fight this. We are extensively drug-resistant tuberculosis. While we are waiting for the host body to pass, let me introduce you to one of our friends, the body's lipids. Unlike immune proteins, which we have to stay away from, lipids always aid in our endeavors. Right, lipids? Lipids? What are you doing? Killing the new recruits is not part of the tour. How are you killing them? What do you mean the doctors engineer nanoparticles into your cubosomes to deliver antibiotic drugs instead of proteins delivering them? That means the resistance is able to be bypassed and the bacteria is killed. I am killed. No, you can't do this. Oxygen is returning to the host body's bloodstream. The lungs are clearing up. The lipids have ruined everything.
Our story today begins with a hot dog. That's right, a hot dog. And we're back at the 150th annual hot dog eating contest. Now, if you're just joining us, Murray the Scoff Jacobson is absolutely destroying this competition. This man is downing dogs in a downright dirty display of demolition as he continues to scoff down dogs, one after another. It's absolute carnage up here at the head table as we head into the final seconds. Now, there goes the scoff. He gets the dog down. Can he get the bun in time before the clock goes? And he does it! Murray the Scoff Jacobson has just broken the world record. Let's go talk to our victor. Murray, we are all shocked. 80 hot dogs. How do you feel right now?
Well, I don't feel too good right now, but it's going to feel great later than that. A lot of people out there doubted me when I said that I wanted to be a professional leader, but, I stuck to it, I committed, and now nobody has the right to laugh at me when I say I support my family as a professional leader. Well, you enjoy yourself tonight, Murray, because you, sir, are a world record holder. Dude, that was insane. You're amazing, man. Thanks so much, Frank. It means a lot coming from you, buddy. But dude, you're gonna have some serious heartburn later tonight. Nah, Frank, it's all good. I actually don't get heartburn anymore. See, every time before one of these big competitions, I order some antibiotics, sort of as a preventative measure, and they stop the Helicobacter pylori from weakening the ring of protective mucus in my gut. That way I don't get heartburn at night. Dude, who takes antibiotics to stop heartburn? I mean, yeah, it's a little inconvenient, but don't you worry that you might be overusing your antibiotics? Nah, Frank, it's fine. I've been doing this for years. Nothing bad has ever happened. But as the two friends conversed, the bacteria inside Murray's gut held an important meeting.
Thank you again for joining me here today, my bacteria brothers. It saddens me to say that our generous host has once again taken up the use of the antibiotics and our numbers are beginning to dwindle. Now, these antibiotics, they come into our gut on the day we have to reproduce, and they do murder. They don't offer friendship. They only come to eradicate us. But I assure you this, the day will come when these antibiotics no longer hold power over us, and then our host will fear us once more.
But as these H. pylori bacteria met, the antibiotics continued to kill them off, one by one. A week's time passed and Murray began to feel better, heartburn not finding him at all. So he stopped taking the antibiotics a week before the prescription was set to be done. This fact troubled Frank greatly, and he urged his friend on to take the full dosage. But Murray heeded him not, claiming that he needn't take the nasty-flavored horse-sized pills they had him taking. And as the two friends argued, the bacteria inside Murray's gut had made yet another important discovery.
Thank you again for joining me today, bacteria brothers. It saddens me sore to see that there are so few of us left. But worry not, for I have good news. I become resistant to the antibiotics that our host has so generously misused. Now please, brothers, stretch out your conjugation tubes to me. Let me pass the resistant gene through the plasmids and let us grow strong once again inside this gut.
And as the bacteria continued to multiply, Murray awoke that night with terrible heartburn. Unsure as to why his antibiotics were no longer working, he pulled up his holochat, and no sooner was the doctor's virtual avatar walking through his bedroom as Murray questioned him fervently. Doc, why aren't these antibiotics working anymore? Well, Murray, we ran a 3D gastrointestinal scan and we singled out several resistant genes inside the H. pylori bacteria living in your gut. It appears they become resistant to the antibiotics that we've given you.
That's fine, Doc. Just give me a different antibiotic. It's no trouble.
Well, Murray, unfortunately, we can't do that. You see, we gave you a broad spectrum antibiotic, and unfortunately, a lot of the other options we could give you won't work against these H. pylori bacteria. I'm afraid you will have an increased risk of gastric cancer and have a higher percentage chance of developing ulcers.
But Doc, that can't happen to me. I'm a professional leader. This is what I do for a living. What am I going to do if this takes away? How am I going to support my family? This can't happen to me.
Well, there are a few options. We have a program at our hospital that encourages antibiotic stewardship, but really, once antibiotic resistance takes a hold, there's not a lot we can do about it. Who knew that something as simple as taking too many antibiotics could have such a widespread effect on my life? I could harm it in so many different ways.
December 5th, 2047. I analyzed my biometric big data board. Bacteria protein synthesis, up 20%. Plant resistance inhibitors, up 30%. And the team in the lead? Team defense. Phew. After weeks of effort to try to save our plant population from the offense team's hyper-resistant bacteria, our team was finally in the lead. I switched on my hover skates and glided out into the heart of the island of Biota. I still couldn't believe it. I, Yes, me, Eliza, was an official intern for Biota, the leading AI-enabled antibiotics research and development company in the world. Following a game-based strategy, Biota's offense teams come up with more and more hyper-resistant bacteria, while the defense teams, aka me, come up with the best antibiotic strategies to combat any threats. By modeling our entire company's R&D after the complex cell war between bacteria and antibiotics, we're well on our way to outsmarting nature and determining the best combat strategies to win the war against antibiotic resistance. One of the heroes on the winning side of this war would be me, and the 50 other interns I was here with on Biota Island. Together, we would truly be able to make an impact and change the world, for we were on a covert mission in order to build smart antibiotics and test them on plant populations. My smart glasses beeped, jolting me out of my thoughts, and I received a call from my research mentor, Maple. She spoke calm. Hello, Eliza. What are your predictions for population resistance? I answered promptly. Well, 40% of the plant population is likely to die, but the AI antibiotics within them will transfer their memory to the neural networks of those currently fighting in order to save the rest of the population. She nodded and the call ended. The island health bot zoomed towards me and projected a message. Please extend your hand. We want to add you to our plant tracking system on the island. I extended my hand and it implanted a patch on me, and I went back to the plant sector, carefully observing the rows and rows of acacia shrubs in front of me, thriving instead of wilting, lively and vibrant instead of dull, and alive instead of dead. My shoulders swelled with pride. One day, these very learnings would be transferred to humans, and I would play a role in saving an incredible amount of lives. And the best part of all of this, the antibiotics were truly perfect. Their resistance inhibitors released false genetic information to bacteria in order to trick them. I mean, if trickery could be used in real-life wars, then why not against bacteria? A sharp pain in my stomach swiped the smile off my face, and a light haze took over my thinking. The island health bot came back to me, administering me a pill. I took it, but I would be fine. It was just the unnecessary stress these past few days. As I headed back to my home pod, I saw a colleague being rushed out of the island in a maglev bubble, limp and lifeless. I brushed it off. It was probably just a lack of sleep on my end. I got another call from Maple, and she spoke, frantically. Eliza, I just wanted to check on any progress? I replied, sighing. Progress? Well, other than an annoying headache, nothing much. She laughed and answered. Don't worry at all. I got the information I need. Information? But I didn't give her any information. I was about to hang up when I heard another voice.
Well, I'm telling you, offense is going to win this one.
Maple replied, well, 40% of the plants and the population are likely to die, but when we look at the other 60% with our memory transfer, they might have a chance. Oh, they were talking about the plants and some sort of a population. I was about to hang up once again when Maple's voice cut through my thoughts. Well, I would definitely predict that Eliza is a part of that 40%. I don't think her chance for survival is too high. What? Me? I froze. There was no way this could be real. I always thought I was playing this game. The offense and the defense, the plants fighting for survival. But I was the game? How could they use me like this? It's not fair, but it all made perfect sense. This perfect, isolated, secret island, 50 people willing to give up everything for Biota. We all came here flocking, having our dreams and our hearts, making a difference. First they drained us of our talent, then our skills. And now us. The island health bot gave me another pill, and I stood there, silent, waiting to see whether offense or defense would win the battle raging within me. Thank you.